their difficulties.
Well, I already had my hand up, and yeah, I had my hand up to say something, but I'll come and answer this question as well. What you said this morning was really very valuable, and I know you were focused on youth, but I just want to say a lot of times parents don't speak up, especially moms, with their mental health because they are scared that their children will be taken away or something like that. So just something that they can also know that help is available for them, and children won't be taken away because you are mentally ill. Yeah. But there will be more help, especially if you come up, you are volunteering to get help. Yeah, so on the question that Kim has asked, it's more about how we were brought up. Yeah, you talked about spirituality and associating things with the spiritual or the evil. And again, it's about what people really know. What I've found, I didn't grow up in an Adventist church. I came here as a young adult. I found that there is that stigma in the Adventist church about mental illness, because people think you cannot be an Adventist and get depressed. But we are created as individuals with the mind and the body. And Jesus healed both. So we can't separate the mind from the body, because that is who we are. And this is why the mind controls the body. I mean, what is in the brain controls what happens in the body. But it's more about how we were brought up. That's why you find that we are not able to help the Caribbean and the Africans. We would like to most of the time, but it's more of how we were brought up. So do forgive us. Yeah, we are willing with the little now that we know we can help. But remember, our upbringing is deep-seated in us. Everything we say or do is from a good place, but it may not be helpful at times.
Thank you for your honesty, because I think that's definitely something that is true, that approaching the conversation takes a bit of vulnerability sometimes, accepting that, you know what, I probably don't even have the answer, and I don't know what to say to you. So owning that bit is also useful as a starting point. Brother Tabo.
Yeah, I think really there are two things I want to talk about. I like the fact that you are specific. This is all about the black race in this country. Sorry I'm not intending to offend anyone, but at one point we just need to hit the nail, right on the head. One thing, personally, I think I have realized, when we send our children to school, one, they are the minority, and the most unfortunate part of everything out of all that is there is a perception that is some sort of a labeling around them simply because of the color of their skin. And as a result, even the way they are taught, their targets and goals are set, they are advised or encouraged to be almost at the base, below everybody else. I mean, I'm talking this, I saw this with my children. I had a lot of fights with them. They would underperform. Oh, Daddy, we have met, Mom and Dad, I have met my targets. What do you mean? I've reached my potential. What do you mean? How do you know what your potential is? And unfortunately, if anyone is a teacher here, sorry, I'll simply have to say the truth that I know. One of the things I've realized is the system is such that one of the first things they do is to win the confidence of our children from us to them. You will come to a situation where a child, if anything, they do anything that is not or you don't like. If you say, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so will know, that child will tell you, no, please, that cannot happen. I'll be in trouble. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, I totally take acceptance of our failure as parents, and indeed, we can only teach and give you guys what we know and what we believe made us. And it may not 100% work for you in this time and age, but sorry, this is only what we know. But the other thing I have also realized is with our black children, one of the issues is when you are at home, mom and dad are trying to instill in you who you are. Whether it's you're Caribbean or you're African, they want to instill that in you. And what you will realize, the moment you step out of the door, you need to switch. Why? You are trying to be acceptable within your peers. So as a result, you live pretty much between two lines. So you actually don't think you either belong with your mates or you belong at home, and that creates a lot of stress on our young people. As a result, some of them who cannot literally stand their ground, they end up looking, okay, within my mates, it looks like this is the trend, and they switch, they try to fall on that side, and they come back home where I say, no, that's not happening. You are not like that. You have done this, you have done that, you have done that. You cannot be like that. Why? Because we as well are struggling to see our children go through that.
Okay. Thank you for that point. I think this mic might be out of batteries because it's going on and off.
I think there's a difference between the generations. It's like between me and my mum. My mum's generation, they tend to be more resilient because they've suffered more hardship. We've grown up with having more, having things given to us, so we don't know how to cope with hardship. And I think I've maybe grown up with less than what some of these, like Denzel, have grown up with. They're at even more of a disadvantage because they don't even know what hardship is. So if we as parents are not actually making them aware of this, how are they actually going to handle this when they come across it? So they're not making it aware, so they can be having mental health issues and problems. They've never talked about this because for my mum's generation it is all pick yourself up, pick your lip off the floor and whatever. Because they've always had that hardship, they know how to deal with it. Like for these younger generations, they don't know how to deal with it. They've never experienced it. So when they come out of the safety of the home or go into the schools and then they're experiencing it, they don't know how to deal with it. And then you've got the older generation, say the grandparents, they've never said to people like me, how do you deal with it? So then when I go on to have my children, I can't pass on what I haven't got. So it's actually getting worse and worse the further we actually go down the line. So it's down to us as a church family now. The problem's been pointed out. It's like, what are we going to do about it? We can't bury our heads in the sand because it is a major problem. Because it's like since the COVID and the lockdown, lots of mental issues and whatever, it's coming to the forefront. People are talking about it more. So it's time now that we need to address it as a family, regardless of race, colour, background. Depression doesn't have a colour. Depression doesn't have a sexuality. Depression, it's depression. Mental health is mental health, regardless of your nationality and whatever. So I think we need to just address these things, strip them back to what it is, address it as a church family, and address it with love and bring it to God, first and foremost.
Thank you for that comment. And you bring up a good point about resilience. And because we got young people here, do you guys want to talk about resilience? So by resilience, we're saying, do you find that the things that stress you tend to be things that are all around you. Like, situations can easily stress you, or you can easily find yourself in a place where you feel really overwhelmed and really stressed out. Is that something that happens for you guys quite frequently?
So not really.
Not really. So when Auntie is saying resilience in young people is less, you guys would be saying, no, actually, no, we can cope. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, Jenna.
For me, I feel like it's harder for me because especially in this day and age of social media and where people portray this life of this is how they're doing things, this is how their lifestyle is, and when I see someone else who's 20 years old and have got a much better life, I'm like, well, why isn't my life like that? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why am I not doing all these things that they're doing? It sort of creates a thing of like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough, and it makes me doubt myself a lot and creates anxiety, saying I'm not up to speed with everyone else. So I think so, yeah.
Okay, so we live in a world of comparing ourselves to other people, and when you are actually aware of the deficits that you have sometimes, that can make you feel, that can lower your esteem, lower your confidence in yourself, and that definitely can impact on your overall well-being. So social media definitely is. Then I'll just come to Sis here, and then go to Auntie after. Yeah. So social media is definitely giving a false impression of living your best life.
Yeah, I just wanted. Didn't realize that my voice is that powerful. Anyway, I just wanted to comment, on the social media part of it. Me personally, I feel like social media has got so much influence on our children. It's very important to differentiate what is reality and what is not. On social media, a lot of people, they are always wanting to show what is not real, if I may say. We want everything to be all good. We want people to see that, we are flourishing, we are doing well, things are going well with us, we've got this high life. If you look in reality, it's not that way. So it's very important to differentiate what is real and what is not in terms of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are many studies that are more and more coming out when they're evaluating the impact of social media. And by social media, we're talking about the addiction sometimes, the influences. A lot of impact, for an example, is with the eating disorders. That's, there is in part something about seeing what would be the ideal, body image, and having the pressure to conform and to be looking like that. And that in itself can then lead to the disordered eating or eating disorders, where somebody somewhat tries to emulate that they've been seeing, not realizing that in this world that we live in with AI and Photoshop and with all these things, I can look the most perfect on my online profile, but in reality and in person, that's not who I am. But regardless, the pressure has been put on someone else to emulate that, okay?
So my question is, based on the fact that the young man said not really, and the young lady answered, is there a disparity related to gender then in anxiety and depression?
So speaking from what would be research that exists out there is when, and I can speak to what is the trend with young people. So you've got the eating disorders and the anxiety disorders. They are more manifest, or they get seen more in adolescent girls. So from the age of like 13 to 16, that's where you see a lot of the anxiety disorders being the main sort of like presenting issue. Then you've got, for the boys, a proportion of them, it's more challenging behaviors or conduct issues. And the conduct issues, challenging behaviors, are more seen in people who now have the diagnosis of your ADHDs and your autisms as well, ASD. So what you're finding is from the age of like 9 to about 12, you're seeing a lot of boys because they are experiencing what are the neurological disorders. They're not mental health disorders, they're neurological disorders, but they affect the mental well-being of young boys. Okay, any more questions that we can go to? Or any other bits that anyone wants to clarify? No? Okay. So the next bit we're going to do, so this afternoon was meant to be focused on now the adults. Denzel, can I get your assistance again? I'm going to ask you to just give out some papers and some pencils as well. So similarly, you're going to do your own blood test to check where your mental well-being is. And as I've said in the morning, you don't have to share this with anybody, but this gives you a snapshot of where you are, you know. By no means the results, they're not a diagnosis, okay? So if your results tell you something that feels like, ooh, this seems extreme, it should conscientize you to thinking about, is this something that I need to explore a bit further, okay? So whilst the papers are going round, if you've got a pen, that would be good. I would like my pencils back at the end, if I may kindly ask, so that I can have the same program in the future. Can you see those questions? Okay, I'll have to read them out. So similar to the questionnaire this morning, this one will have the score at the end, definitely. I've checked that, double-checked that. This is what's called the Generalized Anxiety Disorder Scale. Now, it is mainly used when we are checking levels of anxiety. So to start off with, anxiety is normal, right? Anxiety is normal. If you're a human being and you're alive, you will experience anxiety. So it's the anxiety disorder bit that we get concerned about and we try to support people with, or that people need to get help with. So our bodies have got a fight or flight system, remembering all your GCSE biology and science. So everyone's got a flight or fight system. Your body produces a chemical called adrenaline, and adrenaline is what helps you sort of like respond to situations. So for instance, if someone was to walk into this church possibly wielding a machete, the normal response to that is we're going to try and run away. We're going to try and flight, okay? Some of us might have a different response. That might be, wait a minute, we need to confront that person and fight. For some of us, we have the response where it's so startling that we freeze and we don't move, okay? So either one of those physiological responses happens when you are experiencing panic, and panic is a part of anxiety as well. So because we all have this system, for some people, their system, their fight or flight system is such that it recognizes threats all the time. So it's on high alert 24/7. So imagine being so alert that something dangerous might happen to you, and it's happening throughout the day. That's what ends up stressing you out, keeping you awake at night, making you feel unsafe, keeping you in a state of feeling paranoid. And when that happens, that can definitely affect your mental well-being. So the GAD-7, 7 questions that are used as a screening tool to identify where does your mental health lie in terms of the anxiety scale. So I'll ask the questions. Now, as I mentioned before, this is usually, think 2 weeks back. Within the last 2 weeks, what have you experienced, okay? So when you score yourself 0, so instead of writing what it is, you write a number for each question. So 0 is if it's something that has never happened or hasn't happened in the last 2 weeks. If it's happened for several days, you give yourself a 1. If it's over half the days, so again, 7 days, then that's a 2. And then if it's happening nearly every day, so more than 7 days the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks, then that's a 3, okay? So first one is feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge. If you've had that kind of a feeling where you're feeling, sometimes it's a sense of doom, a sense of, I don't know if things are going to work out, I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm thinking about tomorrow, and I just can't shake thinking about what might be happening tomorrow. You've got, ruminations, same thought over and over and over and over again. If you've been experiencing that, so you just put a number for yourself. The second one is not being able to stop or control worrying. Not being able to stop or control worrying. So where you find yourself that, this morning, I found myself thinking, all right, I need to present this, I need to present this, I need to present this, I need to present this. Last night as I was going to bed, I was thinking, yeah, the presentation tomorrow, I need to make sure it's okay. In my dreams, I was dreaming about the presentation. So where you find yourself that the same thought or the same thing is unshakable, and it's constantly being in your mind. And then worrying too much about different things. So this could be an example of you're thinking about your bills, right? This is the end of the month. Bills need to be coming out. Your wages have come in, but they might not fit with what you need to pay for all your bills. But at the same time, you're thinking about your partner or your spouse or your friend, and you're really concerned and worried about them, and the relationship might not be going well, and you're constantly thinking about that one. And then at the same time, you might also just be just worried about the future. What are you going to be doing with yourself? Is your future set, stable? Do you know what you're going to be doing in the future with yourself? So having a number of things that are just coming in left, right, and center, and you feel like you don't have any control over them. And then the next one will be trouble relaxing. So the restlessness, where you find you can't sit still. You find you have to be constantly doing something. Like you're almost trying to keep yourself busy so that you don't think, that you don't have time to think. You're just constantly doing something. The next one, number 5, is being so restless that it's hard to sit still. Now, restlessness from this point of view, we're talking about the movements, right? So if we're thinking about your flight or fight system, right? When you've got adrenaline constantly pumping in your blood, it's telling you, get up and go, get up and go, get up and go. But you've got nothing to run away from or to escape. So you find you're just restless. You stand up, you sit down, you walk, you sit down, you stand up, you move, you can't just be settled. And then this number 6 is becoming easily annoyed or irritable. This is, I guess we understand irritability, where anything that you usually can cope with, or something that you would be like, yeah, okay, so I don't know, my neighbor left their bin covering my side of the drive. Usually I just, pull the bin and put it on his side. But this time around, I'm gonna go knock on his door and I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind. Don't keep leaving your bin over there. You can't, things that you normally would be able to just deal with, you're finding you're more irritated and annoyed by them. And then finally, feeling afraid as if something awful might happen. So, ever had a feeling or that lump in your throat that just can't go away, where you're just somewhat feeling tight, your shoulders are tight, your whole body feels tense, and you don't know what it is, but there's something that in your mind tells you something bad is going to happen, and you can't shake that feeling, and it's there for some time. So that is the GAD 7. So just those 7 questions can then come up with a score. So I'll give you a minute to total the scores that you've had for yourself. So again, you were scoring, if it's something that's never happened for you, you score a 0. If it's happened several days, it's a 1. Over half the days, and remember we're looking at a 2-week period, it's a 2, and nearly every day it's a 3. Okay. Anyone? I'm not going to ask for any feedback, but anyone who's not yet completed, so that we can move on. Anyone needing time? No? All right. So this is what the score looks like. So if your score comes between 0 and 4, then you've got what would be regarded as normal levels of anxiety. Okay? If your score is between 5 and 9 for your total, then the anxiety is mild. If it's 10 to 14, it's in the moderate. And then if it's 15 to 21, then it's on the side of severe. Okay? So I'll give you a few extra seconds to just see where your score correlates. And then the next bit is looking at, all right, so based on the score that you have, what is the advice? Based on the score that you have, okay? I've said before in the morning that your mental health is on a spectrum where you are in the green, you're healthy. In the yellow, things are mild. In the orange, things are moderate. In the red, that's where things are severe. So we're always on that spectrum where either things are well, mild, moderate, or severe. If you are scoring 0 to 4, then what we're saying is, yeah, you've got normal mood fluctuations. The things that are a telltale sign is you've got normal sleep patterns. You're physically well. You tend to be full of energy as well. And you are consistent in performance. So for instance, all the things that you set out to do, you tend to achieve those things. And you're socially active, so you're connected. You're not isolated. You're someone who's in contact with people, and you've got a healthy social interaction with other people. If you've scored 5 to 9, well, in addition to that, I guess, the things that you can do is to break problems into manageable chunks, identify, nurture, and support systems, and maintain a healthy lifestyle. So if you're in the green, pretty much keep doing what you're doing because it's working for you, all right? If you're scored 5 to 9, then what we're saying is you're probably someone who's experiencing more regularly things like nervousness and irritability. Your sleep starts to get a little bit, challenged in different ways. Either you're struggling to fall asleep, or you're not getting a full night's sleep, or you're waking up in the morning feeling a little bit tired. You experience muscle tension. Usually it's in the upper back of your body that you experience a lot of tension. There is what are called relaxation techniques that people do, stretches that you can do to release tension. And that's usually something that's prescribed for having mild anxiety. You find you're a person who might be someone who procrastinates quite a bit, takes you a while to make a decision. You're not too sure about what you need to do. You're constantly sometimes needing additional reassurance before you make a decision or something. And then again, other physical symptoms could be experiencing headaches, and you somewhat have opportunities to socialize, but you choose to be on your own. You choose to be in spaces where you're isolated from other people. The advice there is, if you're in the mild area, is you need to probably set limits for yourself. It could be that you're setting expectations and goals for yourself that you can't achieve. So if you reevaluate things a bit, you can look and recognize some of your limits. You need to improve your sleep and food hygiene. So with improving sleep and food, some of the things that need improving when it comes to sleep is sitting down, taking a stock of what is your routine when you go to bed. Are you the person that can be watching something before you go to bed? And if so, again, research and studies would tell you that if your brain is very stimulated and the next thing you want to do is fall asleep, it's not going to happen, okay? So it might be just changing the routine that you have. It could be your diet. It could be what you're eating. So again, certain foods will have a stimulating effect on your brain. So if you're eating stimulants, none of us here, well, as we know, most of us here don't drink coffee and caffeine. But if you're having a cup of coffee before you go to bed, the chance is you might find that those are some of the things from a nutritional standpoint that you might need to be thinking about, to help with your eating. If my wife was here, she could give you a whole kind of session on just nutrition and managing things like sleep. I then identify and minimize stresses as, again, this is all things that if you were to sit down either with yourself or with someone else, you could just identify and be like, okay, what are the stresses in your life? What are the things that are contributing to your stress? And if those things are present, are there things that you can change around? There's a therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. And what CBT does is it helps you, as it says, your cognitions is what you think, right? Your thinking and your behavior. So there's a connection between your thoughts and how you behave. You can influence your thoughts by changing your behaviors, or you can change your behaviors by changing your thoughts, by influencing your thoughts. So as we know, what you behold or what you consume, you become it. So for instance, if you want to change the way you think about, I'll give the example of, if I was walking down the street and you were walking the opposite side, and then I walked past and I didn't say hello, you could think that he just blanked me. Maybe he's angry with me. And because of that, you're going to start probably having some feelings towards me that are negative. Also, in that same scenario, your thought can be, actually, he didn't see me. He probably was preoccupied. Probably there's something stressing him out. I ought to turn around, go back and tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, how you doing? Because you just walked past me and I didn't see you. So the way you behave and you react is can be linked to your thoughts. So if your thoughts about something are incorrect, then that can affect how you respond to something. So CBT is a therapy that helps with ordering thoughts, and it's really effective for anxiety in helping develop better ways of managing anxiety. And then for the moderate bit, again, this is characterized by feelings of anxiety, anger, hopelessness, constant sadness, restlessness, insomnia. So what you notice is the symptoms start to increase in terms of the number. You're feeling fatigue, you have the aches and the pains, risky behaviors to become more present. So in the morning, I gave the example of taking an overdose, that people out of anxiety and worry can find that the way they will try to cope with it is to say, I just want it all to stop, and then irrationally use the rationale that says, if I'm not here, then I don't have to feel this and experience this. And so that can end up lead to the risky behaviors as well. And then the decreased performance is like, yeah, if you have a job, most likely you're the person who's calling in sick every so often, once every 2 weeks or something like that you're feeling the worry and the anxiety, and it's affecting your ability to function in the work. You're isolative, so you're spending a lot of time in your own space. Your hygiene or your self-care is starting to be quite neglected. So those then become the signs that you need to be mindful of. The advice there is, it's important to understand what is your own signs of distress. You know, this is at the point where the recommendation is, go see a counselor, go see your GP about it, use the mental health helplines that are available, and then seek social support instead of self-isolation. So tell someone about it. We have a church family. We have a pastoral bit of the church if you are someone who finds yourself isolated or you don't have close family connections or people that you can trust, that you can reach out to. And then finally, if we're looking at just the severe end of it, this is where you've got excessive anxiety, you're not able to regulate your own emotions, you're depressed in your mood, you're exhausted all the time, you're physically ill, so you're constantly having kind of infections maybe. You're not going to work, you're probably off work for quite some time, absenteeism. Your sleep is totally reversed sometimes. You can't sleep at night, you sleep during the day even, or you're not getting sleep at all. You're engaging in the risky behaviors, you're isolative, you're reclusive, and you're even experiencing psychotic episodes, the paranoias, the bits where you are struggling to make sense between reality and what is not real. In those instances, this is where you can be considering things like psychotherapy, again, which is similar to counseling. So CBT is a form of psychotherapy. You've got pharmacotherapy, which is just a fancy way for saying medication, taking antidepressant medicines that can be prescribed by a doctor or by someone who's a trained psychiatrist or a trained nurse who can prescribe medication. At times, you need to, this is a time for hospital admission as well. I have worked in hospitals, and the worst case of anxiety that I've ever come across, I would say, is an older lady who had this fixated thought about she was going to die. You could not shake that belief from her. Every minute she would come to the nursing station and say, I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die. Please don't let me die. 24/7, this is how she was. The only time she wasn't talking and thinking about that she was going to die, not that she wanted to end her own life, but that she was so fixated on this thought that she would die, is when she had probably 30 minutes of sleep. So things can get that really intense. And for that lady, medication did the trick for her. And after probably what would have been 6 months inpatient in the hospital, did she get to the point where she was, stable enough to be sent home? So hospital can be a really good place for recovery when anxiety is at the level where it's unmanageable. There are also what are called community mental health support teams. So before you go into hospital, there's always a community support team that you can be referred to. So for most people, I know in Nottinghamshire, you can refer yourself. You can send an email to their referral desk, I suppose, and get referred that way. Or you go to your GP, and your GP is the one that then refers you to those services. And then what you get is a trained mental health nurse that will probably be visiting you and seeing you every 4 weeks and supporting you with what is home treatment. In the extreme cases where things are where there's been a breakdown in the community, again, as I've said in the morning, going to an A&E, there will be a mental health liaison support worker who's always there 24 hours of the day that will be available to support and guide you with getting help. So I'll give you guys the opportunity to reflect, to hear what your thoughts are about. Does that make sense? Do you know someone who this information can be helpful for? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking from a support perspective, I don't know where the line is drawn in relation to, obviously in actual fact, we've got the skill set in the room and other people in the church who can offer support and guidance. Would something like a church surgery be something that would be a solution to this, or is that going too far, or are we turning this into a medical facility? I don't know, just I thought I'd throw it out there and just see what people thought,
Yeah, so the question to everyone is, do you think this would be helpful for within our church setting to have some kind of structure or some kind of support that we could put in place to, let's put it to anxiety or depression, that people within the church can have access to? Certainly we can't do the hospital bit because that comes with a lot of regulations and things like that. But what would be feasible? What would be practical? If we're taking suggestions that we could then forward to the church board and say, church board, the people are saying this is something that might be helpful for them, what would that look like?
I mean, we've got people that are working in mental health already. So I think if we can have a group of people that train to be working in mental health to help those who are struggling in our church with the mental health, I think that will be helpful practically to have. Just, I think for me, I feel like every church, Seventh-day Adventist should have counseling for mental health, for those who are trained that works in the mental health already. So we have to just do it and have that team that we know that if someone or our children needs help with some kind of, because sometimes as parents we don't know how to deal with it because we're not trained to do it. So we'll find a struggle to deal with our children, or even their friend, you'll find struggle. So if you've got that system in church that there's people that you can call and they can help you, that'll be really good. I think we have to start, I think it's that my brother mentioned that we need that team of mental health to help those who are in need, friends and family.
Thank you. So the comment is, yeah, if you are trained in mental health and counseling, if you're trained in pastoral care, that we could put together a group or a number of people that can support with being a point of contact for the team, for the church members.
Similar to what Mamsi said, but a little bit different in that the whole church can be trained how to listen, and that's part of the probably one of the most important thing about counseling, someone to be able to listen to you, talk about. And I think if everybody is trained in being able to listen, that means that if you are comfortable with one person per se, it's easier for you to go to the person because you know they've got the skills to help you deal with that, whatever you're going through. Because it might be that a team has been set up, but you don't trust anyone in the team enough to be able to open up. So maybe each and every one of us needs to be that person that is trained to be able to listen to to individuals so that there is an outlet for someone who maybe finds you an easier person to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a training out there that's called mental health first aid training. It's an afternoon's worth of training where you can go and you can just get the basics, the bits that are just the contact, the bit where you're having first contact with someone.
Actually, you took words out of my mouth. I wanted to say, I think the Adventist Church, at least in the British Isles, I know they've got counseling services. But as a local church, I think we need mental health first aiders, because those are people at very close proximity, and they can then see how they signpost or they lead people to which channels to follow. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the mental health first aid training is available. I'm sure it's the health department that probably supports with that. I'll just go over there and then come back. Okay.
Oh, no, I was just saying, only when saying we can be trained, yes, it's okay, but we are not gifted in some of these things. I'm not a good listener, so I can't be mental health listening to people's problems. So these are the trains of other people. There are people who are good listeners. Then they can do these things, and then you know that you talk to them, you can feel that they listen and they understand. I'm not going to be good in that department, so we have to look at these things. Not all of us are good in these departments, so you have to be gifted in what you're doing. You can't just go and do anything because of you have to do it. You have to be gifted. So that's what I want to add.
Are there people to agree, disagree, maybe see it differently? Okay. So we've got just 10 more minutes, so I'll start over there and then I'll come back.
I was going to say, I feel like we should have two different categories, so one for the youth and then one for, because obviously like for youth, might not be necessarily comfortable speaking to someone who's older because they might not get like the situation. So I think it's important to have someone for the youth, designated for the youth, who's can help us as well.
That's a good suggestion. Definitely having specific people that are trained for dealing with younger people as with older people, because that's how it is even in the health system that we have. You have specialist children's mental health practitioners and adult practitioners and older adult practitioners, because mental health kind of plays out differently for the different generations and age groups.
I was going to say I agree with Mamsi that not everybody has got the skills or to be able to listen. But that's why we are talking about training. We're going to train you to have the skills so that you will be able to listen to somebody. Because most of us have got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you don't have to be speaking. You can be trained to listen and to say, and to be able to respond to what you are hearing, because you don't necessarily need to be totally quiet, but just affirming that you're listening. I think it will be like she's brought up that as young people, you need somebody you can talk to. If they don't feel secure to talk to any of the people that you have assigned to them as a youth, how are they going to have an outlet? But say, for example, she's comfortable with Mamsi, and Mamsi says, I don't know how to listen to you. Where else is she going to have an outlet? So all I'm saying is that let's open up to the idea of having a training that allows us to be able to do the very things that can be helpful for our young adults and helpful for our friends, because everybody needs an outlet somewhere.
Thank you very much. So, by the way, because this is Community Services Focus Day, as much as the church members are part of the community, we've also got the wider community, which is outside of this church, the people that Brother John was talking about, that attend our food bank. They could be some of the people that can benefit from just having someone with a listening ear who doesn't necessarily give any counseling advice, but is there to listen and just to be able to say, I've heard you. I think the next bit of support by what you're telling me sounds like X, Y, and Z.
I think we all have got good points that, we should have someone who is there to listen when we need them. But I think, what could help, because there are other people out there who are not willing to express themselves, who are not willing to talk to anybody. I think, having, such programs like today, when you just talk about it all the time, it actually helps somebody to be able to open up, because there are a lot of people out there who are struggling with mental health, but they just can't come out. They're struggling to even, express themselves. So having regular programs like these will actually encourage other people who are not able to speak out, and don't know how this might have helped somebody who is struggling with mental health. So always talking about it might help somebody without even talking to somebody.
Absolutely. So we're talking about awareness raising and challenging stigmas. Happens when we talk about things, when we bring it out. We bring out the uncomfortable conversations and we have them. I think we all have the emotional and social intelligence to be able to come up with some very decent ways of managing the distress and the worries and the difficulties that we all experience. When you're on your own, you can only come up with your own solutions. But when you've got a group of other people will help you see things from a different perspective. One of the things I tend to say to the young people that come into kind of services is, you are seeing this issue from your perspective. Now, if I told you there's 10 other people who look at your situation and see it differently, would you find it easier to believe them and believe their narrative of what they're seeing about you, 10 people, versus your own narrative? And because you've been trying to deal with it in many cases on your own, so again, most young people that come into services is because they don't have adults around them that they can go to and open up to. So they then come to someone like myself to then have that conversation and to have that validation and to have someone listen to them and give them an alternative kind of view of what they may be experiencing, which then helps them get on the road to that journey. So agreeing with my sister there that the more we bring things out in the open, the subjects that somewhat could have been taboo maybe or uncomfortable to have, the easier it is for us to be then coming up with practical and real solutions. Everything that's been mentioned here is all things that practically can be done. It's good that we've got the church treasurer here, so if we needed some funding to get it all up and running, to ask the conference to come here and to offer us a training, how much would that cost? Probably the cost, the benefits outweigh whatever cost that is, because what we will get from it is that, we will have a thriving church, whether it's the adults, it's the young people, or it's the older people within the church. And a thriving church, if we go back to this morning's sort of like Bible study lesson, is, we want to walk in the light and be the light. And when you are a light, you become a beacon, you become a lighthouse, and you will draw people. Are we in Bentley? So my research tells me this is one of the most deprived areas within this South Yorkshire, right? And where there's high levels of deprivation, it is congruent that there will be issues around domestic violence, there will be issues around mental health and well-being, emotional difficulties, the chronic sort of like conditions as well. So we probably are not in this building by chance. We are here because God knew that the time would come, as the times we're living in now, where we would be needing to be the place of refuge that other people can come. And in finding refuge, because sometimes when you meet people at their needs, it's then easier to help introduce them to their greater need, which is their spiritual life. So with the food bank, where yes, we're meeting their physical needs, people are hungry, those are the basic needs, food, shelter, safety, we're onto something good. People's psychological needs are also things that I'm sure when we start to create spaces and there's opportunities for those issues to be addressed, that we will definitely see the community see Christ in us, because by following what Christ asks us to do, which is, to love others, we will care about their issues. We'll care that they don't have enough food. We'll care that they don't have enough electric. We will care that their emotional and mental well-being is quite low. So we've got a really good opportunity, I would say, that, as we've already mentioned, the church is blessed with talented people in all various forms, whatever your background and your training may be, that all of us have got a part to play in making sure that this community gets to experience and see Christ through us. So with that said, the last 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes to 5, I think we can probably have a closing song and have a prayer, and then call it a day for this afternoon.
Just on that theme, we have, as Jay's already pointed out, quite a number of people who are trained in this area, people who are trained on parenting. So we will be having a parenting afternoon. And again, it could be that there's some sort of surgery on the back of that. So there are quite a number of things that we're working on. But thank you to Jay, that was absolutely superb. My friend, well done, well presented. One thing in my role, I was in corporate sales all my life, and we were taught spin. And again, it's a trained situation where SPIN stands for situation, problem, implication, and need. So if you always have that SPIN idea in your mind, when you go to a meeting, you can think about what's the situation, what the problems you're experiencing, what are the implications of those problems, and therefore what's the need. That's kind of a salesy thing. But if you have those sort of thoughts in your mind, and I've always sort of walked away with that. So, but thank you again. Could we do a closing hymn, or is that okay? Thanks.
Yeah. 338, please, if the technology is still alive. Or maybe they're sleeping. Are they awake there? Redeem. They're awake. I know everyone is tired and you want to go home and sleep. We finish. Help me with this one song and then you go home. Redeem our love. Is that okay? Or do you want the other one? Our love to proclaim it, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed through His infinite mercy, His child and forever I am. Redeemed, redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed. Our love to proclaim His child and forever I am. I thee, oh my blessed Redeemer, I think of Him all the day long. I sing, for I cannot be silent. His love is the theme of my soul. Redeemed, redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed. Oh, I love to proclaim His child and forever I am. I know I shall sing His beauty again. It needs no mighty light, whose love guideth my footsteps and give up my song in my night. Redeemed, redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed. Oh, I love to proclaim His child and forever I am. Amen. Beautiful song. Thank you.
Let us pray. Our loving Lord, we want to thank you, Lord, for the time and opportunity to talk about the health of our minds. Oh Lord, we know that neither the mind nor the body will be healthy and well without you in the picture. For you are the creator, you are the maker of this whole system. Therefore, Lord, we pray that today, as we have touched this subject, that you will help us, dear Lord, to refocus on you, Because when we are in you and when you are in our lives, everything will fall in place and everything will work according to your will. Therefore, Lord, we want to thank you for all that has been said, and we ask your blessings upon all people who worked to put this program together. Lord, even as we will leave this place, soon we'll be facing the new week. We pray that you will give us your protection, you will give us your guidance throughout this week. We ask all this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.